It is Wednesday, March 21st, 2018. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. Yes, it was a very productive get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Wednesday. Almost got caught again by the same guy and hurt my foot even worse than it already is. I swear, I think I might have busted one of the bones in there or popped something loose, or I don't know, but it doesn't feel quite right, and it is a little bit sensitive. Certainly going to put a little ice on it when we get to the first music break. But otherwise, I feel like it was all around a productive session of rolling. We were working a transition from one grip to a triangle, and also from the counter of it to another submission. I can't exactly remember which one right now because I got some white supremacist on my Twitter feed. It's kind of weird that these people still get some sort of audience these days, but I don't know. Not everybody has internet access, not everybody has the same perspective, and so we are always going to come into some sort of conflict about that, I think. And while I don't see it as anything that actually has to be taken care of, I'm sure it will kind of take care of itself over the longer term. You know, it's harder to be a quote-unquote white supremacist if you use cryptocurrencies, because cryptocurrencies are international. Invariably, the longer you do business in cryptocurrencies, the more you're going to be working with people that are not from the same country you're from. So, get over it. It's kind of a post-national economy, and you need to adjust your attitudes accordingly, man, because my wallet doesn't discriminate between your money and somebody else's. So why should I entertain such a separation? I mean, because basically to me that's like you're just canceling out having more customers. You know, I think that, you know, because we are on a planet of people, that we should most certainly open ourselves up to as many customers, or at least potential customers, as possible. And with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, we have the medium by which to pay pretty much anybody. I mean, previously we were limited even within the dollar and in the fiat realm. We were a bit limited. You know, I mean, I wasn't doing business in yen. The whole time that I did business, I never accepted payment in yen. So, you know, that's kind of a barrier between me and everybody in China. Well, that's not very fair. That's like, what, damn near 2 billion people, man. Maybe not all of them, but somebody in China likes the same shit that I do, or at least would like the same stuff that I do enough to buy the stuff that I was selling. See, to me, that seems a little bit more mature if, in fact, making money is the goal in mind. You know, if you want to discriminate against somebody, well, then got all kinds of other interests and other things that you have to manage just to maintain that. But I don't think you really can in a Bitcoin world. I mean, most of the mining is done in China anyway, so it's like, if you don't like Chinese people, you're kind of fucked. I mean, it's kind of too fucking bad. You're going to be dealing with Chinese people because they're processing your transactions. But, you know, it is an ever-shrinking world, and we're certainly making it no bigger with cryptocurrencies. And so it is with that. I want to go ahead and throw down into some music. We do have some new additions. I did get in some Tool and some more 12-foot Ninja. Let's see, what else did we add? Oh, You know, there's this one song that I've been dying to play on this show, and I have not had it up until right now. And so here it is. Punk It Up by Infectious Grooves. First Dance here on Coin Metal. And that was Anthrax with The Giant. I really like that song. Of all of the stuff that they've come out with since Joey Belladonna has come back, I think that's one that I would really, really, really like to see live. Anywho, got a whole bunch of tabs open. And this first one, I caught this by Jesse Colombo off my Telegram, sorry, not Telegram, off of Twitter. And if you're not following Jesse already, you probably should. Guy's got a really keen mind for what's going on with the whole economic scheme out there. Anyway, this one's on the Gold Telegraph. The central bank bubble. It will be ugly. And this was actually posted on March 21st, 2018. So yes, that was today. And this is by Alex DeLuce. No picture, and Alex can go either way, so possible penis. And you know what? Let's investigate. We can ferret that one out. Easy enough. Yes, penis. Picture. Anyway, continuing. The global economy has been living through a period of central bank insanity thanks to a little understood expansion strategy known as quantitative easing, which has destroyed Main Street and benefited Wall Street. Central banks over the last decade simply created credit out of thin air. Snap a finger and credit magically appears. The only central banks can perform this type of credit magic. It's called printing money, and they have gone on the record saying that they are magic people. And you know what? We are going to right click on that because they actually put that as a link. Increasingly, the money supply lowers interest rates, which makes it easier for banks to offer loans. Easy loans allow businesses to expand and provides consumers with more credit to buy goods and increase their debt. As the country's debt increases, the currency eventually debases, and the world is currently at historic global debt levels. Simply put, the world's central banks are playing a game of monopoly, with securities being bought by a currency that is backed by debt rather than actual value. We have recently seen $9.7 trillion in bonds with a negative yield. At maturity, the bondholders will actually lose money thanks to the global central bank's strategies. The Federal Reserve has already hinted that negative interest rates will be coming in the next recession. These massive bond purchases have kept volatility relatively stable, but that can change quickly. High inflation is becoming a real possibility. China, which is planning to dethrone the dollar by backing the yuan with gold, may survive the coming central bank bubble. Many other countries will be left scrambling. Some central banks are attempting to turn the current expansion policies around. Both the Federal Reserve, the Bank of Canada, and the Bank of England, that's actually 3 banks, dude, have plans to hike interest rates. The European Central Bank is planning to reduce its purchases of bonds. Is this too little too late? The recent global populist movement is likely to fuel government spending and higher taxes as protectionist policies increase. The call to end wealth inequality may send the value of overvalued bonds crashing in value. The question is, how can an artificially stimulated economic boom last in a debtor's economy? central banks began to embrace their quantitative easing strategies as a remedy to the 2007 economic slump. Instead of focusing on regulatory policies, central banks became the rescuers of last resort as they snapped up government bonds, mortgage securities, and corporate bonds. For the first time, regulatory agencies became the world's largest investment group. The strategy served as a temporary band-aid as countries slowly recovered from the global recession. The actual result, however, has been a tremendous distortion of asset valuation as interest rates remain low, allowing banks to continue a debt-backed lending spree. It's a monopoly game on steroids. The results of the central bank's intervention were mixed. While a small elite wealthy segment was purchasing assets, the rest of the population felt the widening income gap as wage increases failed to meet expectations and the cost of consumer goods kept rising. The policies of the Federal Reserve were not having the desired effect. While the Federal Reserve Bank began to reverse its quantitative easing policy, other central banks, such as the European Central Bank, the Swiss National Bank, and European National Bank, have become even more aggressive in the quantitative easing strategies by continuing to print money with abandon. By 2017, the Bank of Japan was the owner of 3/4 of Japan's exchange-traded funds, becoming the major shareholder trading in the Nikkei 225 index. The Swiss National Bank is expanding its quantitative easing policy by including international investments. It's now one of Apple's major shareholders with a $2.8 billion investment in the company. Central banks have become the world's largest investors, mostly with printed money. This is inflating global asset prices at an unprecedented rate. Negative bond yields are just one consequence of this financial distortion. While the Federal Reserve is reducing its investment purchases, the other global banks are keeping a watchful eye on the results. Distorted interest rates will hit investors hard, especially those who have sought out riskier and higher yields as a consequence of quantitative easing, malinvestment. The policies of the central banks were unsustainable from the start. The stakes in their monopoly game is rising as they are attempting to rectify their negative yield bond purchasing with purchases of stocks. Jesus Christ. This is keeping the game alive for the time being. However, these stocks cannot be sold without crashing the market. Who will end up losers and winners? Middle America certainly isn't going to be happy when the game ends. If central banks continue their role as stockholders funded by fiat currency, it will change the game completely. Middle America has cause to feel uneasy. Yeah. So, there you have it. And I was just reading the oh my god, yeah, somebody actually came up with it. Oh, check this out. There's two comments on this. Thomas Joseph says, total joke, central banks will be the destroyer of the world economy and push everyone to socialism. No, not entirely true, Thomas. Just push people to using Dogecoin instead. That's about as close to socialism as we'll end up getting. But the Big Short 101 says, and I love this. Gold bugs ought to love this too. Anybody holding physical, yeah, you ought to love this. This is very bullish for non-denominated fiat assets. The run to tangibles is on, and of course, Bitcoin. But he left out altcoins. And yeah. So yeah, I think that I think Alex is spot on with a lot of his sentiment. He could have used some better wording on this. And I actually did change the tense on one or two of the sentences here to add impact. But I didn't game it up too much. And if you're reading along with it, it wasn't a non-discernible assumption that I made as far as what vocabulary to use. Anyway, but yeah, it's no better than monopoly money. I mean, this is where I like to point out to people the difference between cryptocurrencies and fiat currencies. One of them, and this one is alterable in a couple of ways, but it's not due to something with regard to the cryptocurrency itself, is that you can't just print up a whole bunch more of them. Now, you can do that with ICOs. There are certain ICOs where the issuer has the capability, and of course they say they're going to go talk to some group of elders and decide whether or not they want to create more, but the end result is they are capable of creating more of them. So, in essence, they are capable of debasing the value of their token by not having enough Ethereum to sustain the relative value of it. And again, that's one of those places where I kind of disapprove of ICOs, but hey, you know what? If you want to run that as your pre-funding model, whatever, just make good, okay? Make us look good. Don't piss people off. Don't rip people off. Make good. But anyway, that's where one of the places where cryptocurrencies are better is that you can't just wave the magic wand. It's a deterministic process that creates them, and you can participate in it, unlike banks. And I saw this thing by what's his face, Andrew Santonopoulos, and I'll get back to that. But you know, again, the fact that you can participate in it, it's fully monitorable, it's fully transparent, above the board. And with Bitcoin, it is backed by something. It's backed by you. Especially if you're a miner, or if you're at least running a node, which some people seem to really think that's a terribly important thing to do. I mean, if you're going to be running a node, why not be running a fucking miner? Who gives a shit if you make a lot of money on it or not? Your desire is to contribute to the network, yes? Then contribute some fucking hashing power to the network. It's really not that much more difficult than setting up your silly node. And there is the possibility that if the 13,000 people or so out there that are actually doing the node thing, if they were actually miners instead of nodes, that'd be a significant amount of hashing power. I don't understand the non-economic node thing. I mean, really, I don't get it. The only advantages I can see to running a quote-unquote node, which you should just run a miner anyway, is if you're a merchant or if you've got some sort of political agenda that you're trying to support a specific variant of Bitcoin and you're willing to dedicate electricity and hardware and software to that. You know, but again, there's very, very little that has anything to do with how the Federal Reserve notes are created. They just wave the magic wand, and I've said it a million times. They put some more zeros on the left-hand side of the decimal point, and there you go. You're fucking off to the races again. You got some liquidity to play with. You know, but again, you don't have that with Bitcoin. I mean, you might be able to create a cryptocurrency right now. Write it up. And fucking write up your Genesis block, hash your Genesis block, and put your code up on GitHub, make yourself a fucking Twitter account, IRC chat room, a few other things, Discord room, of course, Telegram, start up a little public awareness campaign and launch a coin. You can do that. It's still possible. With all this talk of regulation and whatnot, that's one thing they can't stop from happening. And because of that, a lot of the legislators out there are being really smart about this. They're not even talking about it as something that is or should be regulated. They're not stupid. They understand that if your coin is popular enough, they could be receiving contributions in it. Well, why would that be a bad thing, right? Gotta get reelected, right? Campaigning some expensive sport. But you know what? This is just so tempting. I have to read it. Because this is... Yeah, I have to read it. A central banker officially loses it. Quote, "We are magic people." This is by Tyler Durden on Zero Hedge. This was actually authored a little while ago, but we're going to read it anyway. It was authored on 5/11/2016. Anyway, continuing on. Over the years, first on the fringe blogs, who dared to point out long ago that emperors are actually naked, and increasing everywhere else, there has been speculation that locked deep inside the ivory towers of the central banks, one could find either career academics or Goldman Sachs alumni who were convinced they were all-powerful, all-capable deities, who, in addition to printing money out of thin air, are comfortable micromanaging not only the world's capital markets, but also economies, just like gods or magicians. But really just insane nut jobs. Today, we got an official confirmation of just how truly profound the central banker delusion of grandeur and sheer insanity is, courtesy of the ECB Governing Central Council member Vitas Viliauskas, who told Bloomberg in an interview that the ECB can conjure up policy surprises, read inflation, if needed to combat economic shocks and push prices higher. While this was merely the usual jawboning by an ECB member, we bolded the word conjure for a reason. It will become clear why soon enough. What followed was the usual verbal diarrhea we have grown accustomed from every central banker, whose first and only job is to preserve confidence in a broken system, so broken that even ordinary people are saving instead of spending despite negative rates. The 42-year-old Vasilikakis, who was appointed to a second term on April 7th, declined to comment on specific policy options the ECB will take, but refuted the notion that the central bank wouldn't be able to react to shocks such as a sudden worsening in the international economy. Quote, "Such conversations, such speculations are taking place before every meeting," he said. Quote, "We still have a lot of tools and we can make surprises for the market. I don't see for the moment any need for a new rabbit because we should implement what was agreed, what was announced." Conversations about helicopter money, for example, which is coming soon. The Libertarian governor singled out a second round of targeted long-term loans to banks as the most powerful addition to the ECB's palette. The so-called TLTRO2 potentially offers to pay lenders to take central bank cash, the idea being that they pass it on to companies and households as loans. The first operation is scheduled for June 24th. This measure, personally for me, is very sexy, Vasilakis said. It can make direct impact on the real economy. Sorry I mispronounced that dude's name. My apologies. Sure, 5 million unemployed European youths will become instantly employed the moment the ECB's, quote, sexy TLTRO2 is activated. Maybe not, but at least the Stoxx 600 should soar for at least 10%. That, quote, economy. He also made clear that the end of cash is indeed coming. Vasilakis also backed the ECB's decision this month to stop production of the 500 euro banknote. The measure was taken because of the note's perceived role in crime, though it drew criticism in countries such as Germany and Austria. I think modern societies shouldn't concentrate on cash. Alternative ways of payment are more effective, he said. Personally, I was supportive. Less cash in a society is better and safer for everybody. Despite all these clear hints, many will be shocked when the central banks finally outlaw all physical cash one day. Yeah, good luck with that. Still, the portly central banker's punchline was the following. Markets say the ECB is done. Their box is empty. Vasilakis, who heads Lithuania's central bank. But we are magic people. Every time we take something and give it to the markets, a rabbit out of the hat. What is most disturbing is that he was dead serious when he said it, which is important because it is finally obvious that central bankers are neither gods nor magicians, nor even doing, quote, God's work on earth, but plain and simple psychopaths. At least the magician he was right about one thing, quote, we give to the markets. Yeah, there you go. Wave the magic wand, I say. Wave on, wave on. But yeah, that hasn't really changed. And in all honesty, I see more of the same coming. I don't see the rest of the global economy like expanding so significantly that I don't see it. You know, like honestly, the biggest thing on my radar at this moment is two things: Bitcoin mining and pot growing. These seem to be the focal points of businesses, is like new businesses and whatnot, is like blockchains and growing pot. If it's related to one of those two things, it probably started happening within the last 2 to 4 years. You know, I understand it, but it shows something to you. It shows you a lack of creativity, I think, and also a reflection of the fact that people don't have fucking money. A lot of people do not have money. I mean, sure, there's like car ads and stuff like that, but it's like the amount of ad space that's going to things like cars is a lot lower than it used to be. And I think it's because at this point, enough people are broke that A, it's a waste of money for dedicating them the money to ad space. When you could be giving the ad space to services and goods that people actually will buy because they actually do have enough money to buy that, as opposed to a car. I mean, I would think that after a while people would start to get a little resentful of hearing car ads, especially if they were like really broke. But anyway, yeah, I think that it's a reflection of the economy that we're just not really seeing a lot of growth out there. And so what that tells me is that there's not enough economy coming, enough economic activity coming to sustain the amount of debt that we have to pay off. I think that's kind of frightening. But I think that, with regard to the cashless society and all that business, I think we were already heading there, but I think cryptocurrencies, and specifically ones that you can actually mine, which is the vast majority of them right now, I think those are going to be the most important, especially coming through this potential crisis. Assuming it ever does express, as doomsayers have long said that it would, and I'm not one of them, if it does express, there is going to be a need to be maintaining the economy. There's going to be a need to maintain liquidity flowing from point A to point B. And the only people that are going to be able to do that are going to be people that have accountable funds, meaning funds that they possessed before and that hadn't been transacted during this issue, this calamity. And so if you weren't exchanging the cryptocurrency that you're trading for fiat or on a fiat base, you'd be just fine. And I think that's something to keep in mind. In the whole kind of bugger mentality or bug out mentality, or what is that, prepper mentality? There you go. Of guns, gold, and I always listen to Gerald Celente, and he's got a few things that you want to make sure that you have in case of an economic collapse, and it's like food, guns, gold, and I think that's important, but I don't think that the rest of the economy is just going to go away. I think some people are actually going to go to work because there's an actual demand for what they have, and people are going to be able to need to spend money. And if they can't spend the US dollars because the merchants won't take them anymore, well, what the fuck else are you going to use? Bitcoin? Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down some music here. And I've got this song here by Megadeth, Set the World Afire, here on Coin Metal. And that was Static X with Machine. It is such a shame that we do not have Static X. However, we do have a new Fed chair. And I got this transcript in front of me here. And I want to read it. It's only 3 pages. I think we can jaunt on through it here, and let's see if the man has anything useful to say to us about cryptocurrencies. Anyway, this is Chairman Powell's opening statement, preliminary, March 21st, 2018, transcript of Chairman Powell's press conference opening remarks. Chairman Powell, good afternoon. I have a brief statement, and then I'll be happy to respond to your questions. The job market remains strong. The economy continues to expand, and inflation appears to be moving toward the FOMC's 2% longer-run goal. As you already know, we decided today to raise the target range for the federal funds rate by 1/4 percentage point, bringing it to 1.5 to 1.75%. This decision marks another step in the ongoing process of gradually scaling back monetary policy accommodation, a process that has been underway for several years now. Job gains averaged 240,000 per month over the past 3 months, well above the pace needed in the longer run to absorb new entrants into the labor force. The unemployment rate remained low in February at 4.1%, while the labor force participation rate moved higher. Over the past 4 years, the participation rate has remained roughly unchanged. That's a sign of improvement, given that the aging of our population is putting downward pressure on the participation rate, and we expect that the job market will remain strong. Although the growth rates of household spending and business investment appear to have moderated early this year, gains in the fourth quarter were strong, and the fundamentals underpinning demand remain solid. Indeed, the economic outlook has strengthened in recent months. Several factors are supporting the outlook. Fiscal policy has become more stimulative. Ongoing job gains are boosting incomes and confidence. Foreign growth is on a firm trajectory, and overall financial conditions remain accommodative. Against this backdrop, inflation remains below 2% longer run the 2% longer run objective. Hold on one moment. I gotta make a minor adjustment here. There we go. Overall consumer prices, as measured by the price index for personal consumption expenditures, increased 1.7% in the 12 months ending in January. The core price index, which excludes the prices of energy and food and is typically a better indicator of future inflation, rose 1.5% over the same period. However, as we have noted for some time, the shortfall of inflation from 2% reflects at least partly some unusual price declines that occurred nearly a year ago. In coming months, as those earlier declines drop out of the circulation, inflation should move up closer to 2% and stabilize around that level over the medium term. Of course, various forces will continue to affect inflation. At times, it may be above 2%, just as at times it may be below. Our inflation objective is symmetric in the sense that we are trying to prevent persistent deviations from 2% in either direction. Based on the projections that committee participants submitted for this meeting, the median projection for the growth of inflation-adjusted GDP is 2.7% this year, 2.4% next year, and 2% in 2020, a bit above its estimated longer run rate. The median projection for the unemployment rate stands at around 3.8% in the fourth quarter of this year and runs at 3.6% over the next 2 years, almost a percentage point below the median estimate of its longer run normal rate. Finally, the median inflation projection is 1.9% this year, 2% next year, and 2.1% in 2020. Compared with the projections made in December, real GDP growth is stronger, the unemployment rate is lower, and inflation is slightly higher. As I noted earlier, today's decision to raise the federal funds rate is another step in the process of gradually scaling back monetary policy accommodation as the economic expansion continues. This gradual process has been underway for more than 2 years, and it has served and should continue to serve the economy well. In making our policy decisions over the next few years, we will continue to aim for inflation rate of 2% while sustaining the economic expansion and strong labor market. In the committee's view, further gradual increases in the federal funds rate will best promote these goals. By contrast, raising rates too slowly would raise the risk that monetary policy would need to tighten abruptly down the road, which could jeopardize the economic expansion. At the same time, we want to avoid inflation running persistently below our objective, which could leave us with less scope to counter an economic downturn in the future. Participants' projections of the appropriate path for the federal funds rate reflect our gradual approach. The median projection for the federal funds rate is 2.1% at the end of this year, 2.9% at the end of 2019, and 3.4% at the end of 2020. By 2020, the median federal funds rate is modestly above its estimated longer-run trend. Most participants revised up their projections since December, although the median projection for this year did not change. The medians for 2019 and 2020 are somewhat higher than in December. Of course, we'll be watching how the economy evolves in the months and years ahead relative to our maximum employment and price stability objectives. If the outlook changes, we will adjust monetary policy appropriately. Frankly, I'll note that our program for reducing our balance sheet, which began in October, is proceeding smoothly. Barring a very significant and unexpected weakening in the outlook, we do not intend to alter this program. As we've said, changing the target range for the federal funds rate is our primary means of adjusting the stance of monetary policy. As always, the committee would be prepared to use its full range of tools if future economic conditions were to warrant a more accommodative monetary policy than can be achieved solely by reducing the federal funds rate. Thank you, and I'll be happy to take your questions now. And of course, no answers to questions, but that's quite alright, dear sir. So what this says to me is that this guy's miscalling the relative interest rate as far as, like, you know, what it means for you at places like the gas pump and the rent that your landlord is expecting at the end of the month. These things I believe will continue to rise in relative price to US dollars. Again, I think people tend to look at the price of things as a quote, like a static thing, like it's as firm as like a, you know, it's a rock or something like that, you know, that it doesn't change over time, right? Well, we already know that's not true. You know, we get kind of comfortable with the idea of a quote unquote price, but what's really going on there is an exchange. US dollars to oil, US dollars to gasoline, US dollars to cigarettes, coffee, alcohol, Bitcoin. And where we had the advantage in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is that we know how many there are. We know how many there are going to be. We know the rate at which they are going to be issued. We don't know these things. And according to the Fed chair himself, he lays out this whole plan about what they're going to do with their interest rates. And then at the very end, he puts it all back up into question by saying, well, depending on the economic outlook, we might be we might be flexible on our level of accommodativeness to the realities of the market, meaning that at any time they will dig into their toolbox and they will pull out the magic wand and they will wave it around a little bit, put some more zeros on the left side of the decimal point, and everything will be fine. We'll have some more liquidity, some stimulus, some quantitative easing, some money printing, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It'll be a debasement of the dollars in your pocket. That's it. You know, you want to know why the stock market goes up? That's the stock market being invested in, as we've reviewed earlier now, by the banks. The central banks themselves are investing in the fucking stock market. I mean, it's like one big circle jerk. You know, they wave the magic wand, they create the money, and then they buy the stock with it. That it causes the stock value to go up, so they need to wave the magic wand again, so they can make even more money, so they can buy more stock, which will make the price go up, which wave the magic wand. It's a never-ending circle jerk here. And in the meantime, while all of this magic wand waving is going on, Bitcoin is going up in value. Because some people aren't fucking stupid. They understand what's going on, and they're like, well, at one point or another, one of these parties in this circle jerk is going to get off. One of them. Either the Fed's going to sell some fucking stock, or, you know, or we're all going to sell some stock and crash the fucking Fed's balance sheet by depreciating it. One of us is going to be jumping off. And at some point or another, it's going to happen that somebody's going to cash out. Either, you know, Apple is going to cash out a significant portion or whatever. Somebody's going to cash out a big-ass chunk of the Apple shares that they own, and that's going to hurt somebody. Probably all of us. Because ultimately, the fucking Apple stock is on the Fed's balance sheet as an asset that they can borrow against. Isn't that just fucking hilarious? But yeah, it's I can't think of a better way to create contagion in a market. Okay, for the bank that's in the process of debasing its notes is investing in the market that it's the hyperinflation of its notes has created. Dude, you can't buy enough motherfucking iPhones, okay? You cannot buy enough iPads or whatevers, whatever. You can't do it. You can't watch enough TV on fucking iTunes. You can't download enough music on iTunes to sustain the global economy. At some point or another, that has to come out in actual value. And if Bitcoin and crypto and other proof of work cryptocurrencies only virtue is that they are proof that somebody actually dedicated the fucking hardware to the process of mining it, it's going to be that much more secure, that much more trustable than these unaccountable notes that, like we've talked about earlier here, have just been magic wanded into existence by magic people at the central banks. I mean, I talk about this all the time, and I think it's lost on a lot of people that we are a reflection of this magic wand waving. Because again, we know how many fucking Bitcoin there are. We can see the transactive activity on the blockchain. Again, this makes it that much more accountable than these black box banks that have somebody wave a magic wand to create more liquidity to throw out on the market. And you know damn well they are investing in cryptocurrencies. I mean, you've got R3. It's primarily legacy banks and legacy investment houses and other legacy companies that are collaborating. But what they cannot substitute, and we will come back around to this repeatedly in cryptocurrencies until we get it figured out, they cannot substitute you. You know, we can play the exchange game and whatnot, but what it will really come down to, what the trustable cryptocurrencies will come down to, is the ones that you are participating in. You know, and if Ripple changes their stance and whatnot and gets to where more public people, more unlicensed people can get in on their mining or mining their just participating in their network. From what I do understand, there's just a teeny tiny bit of licensure or whatever. I don't know that there is any with Ripple, honestly. I'm not going to FUD on that. I just know that it is a bit more restrictive than participating in Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. But again, these are the coins that we are going to be trusting more. It's like Bitcoin, Ethereum to some extent. I think Ethereum is kind of, it's interesting because it's kind of taking a role of a central bank within crypto, but the contagion of it is restricted solely to the cryptocurrencies that are involved in it as an asset. But again, they do have their miners. You know, it's not all just a bunch of banks and mining with ATMs and whatnot. But on the subject of Ethereum, I caught this one on my Twitter feed earlier, and I think it's worth discussing because Ethereum has been plagued with a lot of security issues. Here we go. This is by William Suberg from the picture and the name Yes Penis, authored approximately 6 hours ago. Coinbase bug allowed users to steal unlimited Ethereum. Wallet paid 10,000 bounty for discovery. Major U.S. crypto wallet provider and exchange service Coinbase has rewarded a Dutch company with a $10,000 bounty after it discovered a smart contract glitch allowing users to steal, quote, as much as they want in Ethereum, according to a report made public today, March 21st. And we are going to right-click on that report because it sounds terribly significant. The issue, which V Company reported to Coinbase December 27th of last year, revolved around exploiting a smart contract that involved a faulty wallet. Users were technically able to credit themselves with unlimited Ethereum funds, quote, by using a smart contract to distribute Ether over a set of wallets. You can manipulate the account balance of your Coinbase account, V Company described in the report, continuing, quote, if one of the internal transactions in the smart contract fails, all transactions before that will be reversed, but on Coinbase, these transactions will not be reversed, meaning someone could add as much Ether to their balance as they want. Coinbase has faced continued technical difficulties for almost a year since a mass influx of new users in mid-2017. The largest U.S. exchange and wallet providers' technical capabilities have been stretched, resulting in delayed and missing funds, system outages, and other problems. Despite promises to beef up performance, the reaction to a bug that could technically have drained billions of dollars in cryptocurrency is telling. Coinbase only fixed the issue a month after the original report on January 26th. Quote, analysis of the issue indicated only accidental loss for Coinbase and no exploitation attempts, it wrote as part of its commentary. Loopholes of this type have previously affected major businesses interacting with cryptocurrency. In January, Cointelegraph reported on a website glitch at Overstock.com, which allowed users to pay and request funds in either Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash, resulting in huge savings or huge profits. Overstock uses Coinbase's merchant integration API. Interesting. So we haven't worked it all out. Yeah, I would anticipate any kind of... there's going to be issues in this stuff. We haven't worked it all out yet. But I think it's a good thing for it to continue to... these issues to continue to be exposed so that we can deal with them. And I think that's one of the key issues with participation, that I think that as long as more of us can participate, or all of us can participate, that this kind of stuff will continue to get taken care of in short order. But if it starts migrating away into walled gardens and elite status persons only and so on and so forth, I think that we'll have issues that last longer than they should. Something that would have had a 24 or 48 hour turnover rate would turn into weeks, possibly even months. I don't think we can afford that kind of lackadaisicalness. So again, I don't think we should be trying to exclude anybody from the cryptosphere. Certainly not now. I don't think in the future either. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. I've been dying to play some Slayer. And I have not been playing Slayer for quite a while for whatever reason. I don't understand it. Well, when it comes to Slayer, exactly which song to play, I just want to just click on one of them. Deviants by Slayer, here on Coin Metal. And that was Helmet with Unsung. I'm trying to do a little translation here. Let's see here. I found this web page. I wanted to... Let's see here. It was originally Korean. Yeah, here we go. This article, I just translated it via Google Translate from Korean. Don't know if it's South Korean or North Korean, or if there's a difference between the two. I couldn't tell you. Anyway, continuing on. New People's Bank of China, Bitcoin freely given money to everyone. That's interesting. Yi Gang, the newly elected governor of the People's Bank of China, expressed a positive attitude about the currency, including Bitcoin. It is interesting to note that the People's Bank of China, which has shown a negative view of cryptography in the meantime, has changed its position on cryptography. In an interview with the Chinese media on March 19th, local time, the Li governor referred to the Bitcoin as the currency that gives everyone the freedom to participate. He said that Bitcoin is a potential what? Dude, this author is driving me nuts. Sorry. In contrast to what the People's Bank of China's Van Guangkang said in December last year, Bitcoin will soon disappear. The governor of the river used Bitcoin as an adrenaline adjective and said Bitcoin was a topic of great public interest for a long time, he said. The governor of Yichang took over the position of my apologies, former governor of the People's Bank of China, with the decision of the National People's Congress. The innovative and progressive attitude of the Li governor represents the attitude of the Chinese Economic Organization, which is different from the previous one. Many organizations and experts are paying attention to this phenomenon. Tommy Z, a Chinese economist at OCBC Bank in Singapore, described Li as, quote, the leader of economic reform in China. Given the willingness of economic reforms announced by the governor of Lijiang and the positive view of cryptography, I'm thinking they're putting cryptocurrency in there instead of cryptography. The announcement of the new president of the People's Bank of China is expected to lead to new regulations on cryptocurrencies in China. However, the former Chinese People's Bank of China Governor Xiao Chan said the development of electronic money is technically inevitable. Wow. That's strange language. However, the Chinese banking system has not yet accepted the money as a means of payment. Very interesting. It gives us some prices on cryptocurrencies as well. Nice to know that they're actually monitoring more than Bitcoin, but that is a little bit different temperament than we typically get in American sourced articles concerning Bitcoin, and concerning Bitcoin in China, that is. So I don't know. 2018 will be kind of interesting. I think they've really had their realism moment where they've seen the market shocks of their statements and the kind of changes that it's motivated in the minds of people that are involved in cryptocurrencies. You know, like this whole thing about chilling on people that are using electricity for mining Bitcoin. As soon as that happened, that was a major warning flag to every single miner that's involved in China. And they said, okay, we got to look for someplace else that's not talking about regulating us or cutting the electricity on us. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm sure that the PBOC evaluated that and said, now wait a minute, we have this strategic advantage where we have really cheap electricity, we have source 2 hardware for the miners, and to some extent they're abusing the advantage that they have, just a teeny tiny, but it's to our advantage. In the global economy of Bitcoin, it is to our national advantage. That economic activity is happening here in China because the mining is happening here in China. And the miners cash their fucking Bitcoin out and spend them in our economy. That economic activity will go somewhere else if the mining goes somewhere else. I'm sure somebody in the PBOC said that during some congressional meeting amongst their board or whatever, where they were discussing these kinds of things, where they're like, look, dude, we can avert the threat that it has with our schemes here, or we can embrace the shit. And if we embrace it, we will be that much further ahead of everybody else that is talking about regulating this shit down. And I think the U.S. government is starting to understand this one just a little bit. I would hope that they take it to heart a little more. I think that America has, to some extent, shown that a lot of people are really eager to try and regulate cryptocurrencies, and that doesn't necessarily make it the most profitable environment to set up shop in. Now, it's true, there is a great deal of capital that is interested in getting into cryptocurrencies here in America. Or the Americas, or North America, the US, whatever, USA. But it's being restricted. And it's not so much about what regulations actually exist or what regulatory pressures actually can be applied. It's the perception that at any moment some technical glitch will make it possible for them to do it, and every state governor and every federal regulator will be up in arms trying to become the regulatory body that rules Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Personally, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think that the reduction of everybody to basically potential participants or just simple end users, that has a leveling effect of everybody. And so, yeah, big whoop-de-doo. The central banks are probably out there buying up Bitcoin. They're probably trading it too. And they're going to sell it sometime. And they're going to be a lot less cautious about selling in our markets than they are in conventional markets. And as we talked about earlier a couple times now, the federal governments, or not federal governments, the central banks are investing in the open markets and the stock markets. That gives you some idea of how stark the economic conditions are that they would even engage in that massive circle jerk system that we talked about. Because invariably they're going to end up pricing more and more of us out. I mean, there'll always be something for us to invest in. But I think more and more they're going to end up driving people to cryptocurrencies only because the best returns against fiat inflation will be found amongst us. Not penny stocks, not their DAO account, their DAO based account. No. In cryptocurrencies. And I really think that will continue as long as the Federal Reserve and other central banks continue to do the quantitative easing and other stimulus programs. When they go back to being a dormant shell of an organization that just has massive amounts of liquidity that they issue out at a deterministic rate that is completely transparent to the public. Until that happens, I think they're just going to be a big question mark. And in reality, question marks are inefficiencies because you can't build on top of them. You can only approximate. And invariably, that's, if there is some place that fucks up in your production line, it's where those question marks are. And so you want to get rid of as many of those as you possibly can. You know, I've talked about on this show how natural systems just simply do not tolerate an element that's too noxious. At one point or another, that element will either have killed off enough of the things that it survives on that it doesn't have a local source of food and will die off, or it gets integrated into the local system. You know, if it is too noxious though, and doesn't provide enough benefit to the local ecology, again, it will poison enough of the local ecology that it won't be able to sustain itself and it will all die. That's just carrying capacity. That's biology. And we are no different. Noxious elements, bottlenecks, inefficiencies, these are things that we seek to get rid of. And so I don't think that the future markets are going to tolerate the liabilities that having people that can wave a magic wand and up the interest rate or lower the interest rate or decide what they're going to invest in, decide what they're not going to invest in, what they're going to inhibit investment in. That's inherently more dangerous to the global economy than fully public ledgers. I think in the future, we're going to be less willing to relegate that responsibility off to trust brokers like banks. They will be far more interested in holding our own funds because we can. Anyway, I got this article here on ccn.com. U.S. Treasury could include cryptocurrency wallets addresses in sanctions hit list. Yeah, but they can't do fucking shit about it. Anyway, this was authored March 31st, 2018. Continuing on. The U.S. sanction list keeps getting longer. Most recently, the U.S. Department of Treasury has revealed it's considering adding digital wallet addresses to its growing list of sanctions, but only if they can link the wallet addresses to someone who has been blocked. The agency updated the documents, and we're going to right-click on that, on March 19th on the heels of a ban issued by President Trump on Venezuela's state-issued cryptocurrency, the Petro. According to the documents, the Office of Foreign Assets Control would add the digital wallet addresses to alert the public of specific digital currency identifiers associated with a blocked person. They added that the list of cryptocurrency addresses is not likely to be exhaustive. It sounds like another way to enforce Know Your Customer standards. Quote, parties who identify digital currency identifiers or wallets that they believe are owned by or otherwise associated with specially designated nationals and hold such property should take the necessary steps to block the relevant digital currency and file a report with the OFAC that includes information about the wallet's or address's ownership and any other relevant details, the document states. The sanctions against blocked individuals would be used in conjunction with other tools the agency relies on to combat crime, including illicit transactions with cryptocurrencies. Why the wallet? The digital address is a set of letters and numbers associated with a digital wallet that dictate where cryptocurrencies end up without the need for a bank or payments platform. A former government advisor told Wall Street Journal that wallet addresses are the best tool regulators have to uncover fraud. Once a bad actor knows their wallet address has made the sanctions list, they may ditch it for another one, but at that point, financial entities could use the blacklisted address for clues to identify the next one. The mechanics of sanctions on cryptocurrency wallet addresses work similar to those used in the shipping industry. For instance, in that case, ships or other properties are blacklisted. Quote, just like in the case of vessels, Treasury will identify certain species of digital currency as being issued by prohibited actors. Paul Hastings' attorney Scott Flicker told WSJ, but while these sanctions may lead to illicit funds, they may fall short in uncovering the perpetrators of the fraud. A new address is generated each time a digital currency user requests money, so these addresses will be those that were used once and will never be used again. Another attorney pointed out that in the WSJ story, the U.S. government is considering implementing sanctions on cryptocurrency wallet addresses on the heels of a recently released whistleblower document revealing covert operations undertaken by U.S. National Security Agency to spy on Bitcoin transactions. Yeah, whatever. Let's go into the comments on this. I always like this stuff. Let's see. Global View. This will not end well. The bad actors will change wallet addresses at will and or move to Monero or other. I'm adding this. Move to Monero or other privacy-based cryptocurrency such as Verge, where they will never be tracked. In the 1990s, I recall watching the government of France try to block entry into France, all English-based websites, in an effort to promote the French language on the internet. This reminds me of that futile attempt by a government that knows little about the technology they hope to regulate. I couldn't agree more, Global View. Let's see here. The next one, Thomas Pendergrast. In the meantime, billions, billions of new business walks out of the U.S. to friendly countries. Way to go with MAGA, Making America Great Again. Let's see. The majority of the people who make these laws have no clue what they are talking about. Most addresses are single use, and the network is decentralized. It would take massive amounts of funding and manpower to even begin to figure out who owns what addresses. That is assuming, of course, that somebody has actually taken the time and trouble to obfuscate their identity through their device and other means. There are a few available to you. But, there you have it. They are going to try to track addresses. Can you imagine that? I know that every time that I use like Coinbase or other exchange like that, I use a new wallet for everyone. A new wallet address for every transaction. So, if I were to be receiving funds to a device, the fact of the matter is the device probably won't even be identified with me. So, being able to, how should I say this, conclusively, without a doubt, verify that it was me who received the funds, you can't actually have a lineage of the transactions that follow that you can rely on. There could be a wide variety of ways that what identifiers are available are spoofed. So I'm not looking forward to this kind of shit going on, honestly. Because it means at some point or another somebody's going to get arrested. Now, whether or not they'll actually be guilty of a quote-unquote crime, that remains to be seen. But I doubt they would be. Unless somebody was trying to make an example of them, which our government is always trying to do. Why do you make an example out of somebody? It's because you can't afford real enforcement. So the best you can do is try and scare people into compliance. And you will get some level of compliance with that. But If the profit motive for being on the criminal side of that is high enough, people will be on the fucking criminal side of that. I've seen evidence of it myself. You know, like, I think I've talked about this before on this show, but when I first moved up here, the marijuana market was not what it is today. I mean, most of it was still underground, and the medicinal had not gone to having dispensaries yet. So it was still quite hush-hush. And in Oregon, outside of Portland and a few other places, is relatively conservative. As a matter of fact, there are several counties that are quote-unquote dry counties when it comes to being able to so much as cultivate cannabis. I mean, it's legal for you to have in personal amounts as per the state law, but you can't grow your own pot there because of city ordinances and shit. Anyway, so, but when I first moved here, I could go to any fucking store around here and buy Swisher Sweets in a multitude of flavors. I could buy 6-inch rolling papers in a multitude of flavors. So what does this really tell you? It tells me that there are so many fucking pot smokers up here that they can't handle going to Albertsons and not being able to buy Swisher Sweets in grape flavor. There is that market, otherwise Albertsons would not have any shelf space for fucking grape flavored Swisher Sweets. But they do, and they did. Which means there's a user base of that local to my vicinity, and there really aren't that many people that live here. So I'm estimating about 60, maybe 70% of them smoke pot. Because, you know, a select number of pot smokers actually even roll blunts. So, I mean, really, you got to think about that. You've got so many people smoking pot in the closet that are willing to empty out a Swisher Sweet and roll a fucking blunt with it, that you've got it not only in convenience stores, but you've got it in normal grocery stores. That's a significant amount of fucking customers, I'm just saying. So again, the idea that you can maintain a prohibition on something that people really, 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 really want, and especially something that's digital that people really, really, really want, it's fucking ludicrous. It's fucking silly. Why even bother? I mean, somebody will try, I'm sure. Absolutely sure. But what we're going to find out is they're not really capable. There's going to be cryptocurrencies and other means within cryptocurrencies to get completely around them. And around their means of monitoring you. And then what good will the apparatus be? You know, if it's not actually able to monitor your transactions, it's not able to stop your transactions, of what use will it be? Like I said, people are motivated to do what people want to do. And if people want to use cryptocurrencies, they will use them. No matter what government entity has to say about what. Anyway, I got this OFAC business here, and this is let's see, additional Iran-related questions from financial institutions, and this is related to the article we just read. Questions on virtual currency. This is, I can't tell what page this is right here. It doesn't actually tell me. We'll see it at the bottom, I'm sure. Oh, this is at the bottom, so that's cool. Anyway, this is, I'll find out what page I'm on here, because it's actually near the bottom. This is assessing OFAC name matches. And of course, they're talking all about money for, terrorism and whatnot. If you're calling about a wire transfer or other live transaction. Oh shit. That's funny because they didn't even bother to put you on this spot. This is assessing OFAC name matches on treasury.gov. Let's see. How do I determine if I have a valid OFAC match? Please take the following due diligence steps in determining valid OFAC match. If you're calling about a wire transfer or other live transaction, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah, so this is like terrorism identification and shit. Sanctions compliance. Here we go. So basically they want to try and extend the compliance to our embargoes and whatnot to virtual currencies. But I'm just trying to give a little context for what I'm about to read. Questions on virtual currency. And this is number 559. For purposes of OFAC sanctions programs, what do the terms, quote, virtual currency, digital currency wallet, and digital currency address mean? Virtual currency is a digital representation of value that functions as 1. A medium of exchange, 2. A unit of account, and or 3. A store of value. Is neither issued nor guaranteed by any jurisdiction and does not have legal tender status in any jurisdiction. Digital currency includes sovereign cryptocurrency, virtual currency, non-fiat, and a digital representation of fiat currency. A digital currency wallet is a software application or other mechanism that provides a means for holding, storing, and transferring digital currency. A wallet holds the user's digital currency addresses, which allow the user to receive digital currency, and private keys, which allow the user to transfer digital currency. The wallet also maintains the user's digital currency balance. A wallet provider is a person, individual, or entity that provides the software to create and manage wallets, which users can download. A hosted wallet provider is a business that creates and stores a digital currency wallet on behalf of a customer. Most hosted wallets also offer exchange and payment services to facilitate participation in a digital currency system by users. Let's see here. Are my OFAC compliance obligations the same regardless of whether a transaction is denominated in virtual currency or traditional fiat currency? Yes, the obligations are the same. U.S. persons and persons otherwise subject to OFAC jurisdiction must ensure that they block the property and interests in property of persons named on OFAC's SDN list or any entity owned in the aggregate, directly or indirectly, 50% or more by one or more of the blocked persons, and that they do not exchange in, trade, or other transactions with such persons. As a general matter, U.S. persons and persons otherwise subject to OFAC jurisdiction, including firms that facilitate or engage in online commerce or process transactions using digital currency, are responsible for ensuring that they do not engage in unauthorized transactions prohibited by OFAC sanctions, such as dealings with blocked persons or property, or engaging in prohibited trade or investment-related transactions. Prohibited transactions include transactions that evade or avoid, have the purpose of evading or avoiding, cause a violation of, or attempt to violate prohibitions imposed by OFAC under various sanctions authorities. Additional persons that provide financial, material, or technological support for or to a designated person may be designated by OFAC under relevant sanctions authority. Persons including technology companies, administrators, exchangers, and users of digital currencies and other payment processors should develop a tailored, risk-based compliance program which generally should include sanctions, list screening, and other appropriate measures. An adequate compliance solution will depend on a variety of factors, including the type of business involved. There is no single compliance program or solution suitable for every circumstance. 561. How will OFAC use its existing authorities to sanction those who use digital currencies for illicit purposes? The United States' whole of government strategies to combat global threats such as terrorism, transnational organized crime, malicious cyber activity, narcotics trafficking, weapons of mass destruction, proliferation, and human rights abuses, and including targeting an array of activities, including the use of digital currencies or other emerging payment systems to conduct prescribed financial transactions to evade U.S. sanctions. These strategies draw from a broad range of tools and authorities to respond to the growing and evolving threat posed by malicious actors using new payment mechanisms. OFAC will use sanctions in the fight against criminal and other malicious actors abusing digital currencies and emerging payment systems as a complement to existing tools, including diplomatic outreach and law enforcement authorities. To strengthen our efforts to combat the illicit use of digital currency transactions under our existing authorities, OFAC may include as identities on the SDN list specific digital currency addresses associated with blocked persons. How will OFAC identify digital currency related information on the SDN list? OFAC may add digital currency addresses to the SDN list to alert the public of specific digital currency identifiers associated with a blocked person. OFAC's digital currency address listings are not likely to be exhaustive. Parties who identify digital currency identifiers or wallets that they believe are owned by or otherwise associated with an SDN and hold such property should take the necessary steps to block the relevant digital currency and file a report with the OFAC that includes information about the wallets or addresses ownership and any other relevant details. 563. What is the structure of a digital currency address on the OFAC's SDN list? The digital currency address field in the SDN list provides the unique alphanumeric identifiers, up to 256 characters, for digital currency addresses and identifies the digital currency to which the address corresponds. Ergo, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, blah, 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 blah. Alright. Oh, and Petro. I guess they're monitoring only like BTC, Ethereum, Litecoin, Neo, Dash, Ripple, IOTA, Monero, and Petro. Gosh, that only leaves about 672 cryptocurrencies that they aren't monitoring that you can use to transact monetary value with. There you go. So the OFAC is going to be monitoring your addresses and trying to associate them with transactions with all the persons that you've ever transacted with. And if they find that you've transacted with somebody on one of their lists, or somebody who is associated with one of the addresses on their list, and there's no prescription for what their actions were actually going to be. I mean, are they going to declare sanctions against you? You know, it's like, I see their list as being quote unquote exhaustive within a very, very short period of time. I mean, I can change addresses of my shit like on the fly. So, you know, they associate it, like they backward associate it with a transaction or two. They're going to spend money and whatnot trying to associate it with other transactions that I've done from derivative addresses. And I think it's a silly effort, or I don't know. I didn't see any indication of actual real action. You know, like that seemed like a lot of talk, but because we aren't talking about enforcement activity and whatnot, I have a hard time believing that it was anything more than a categorization of data. You know, it's like how they themselves are going to manage it. I don't know. Anyway, I do want to put on some music because I'm hearing this song in the background and I really, really dig this song. This is Love to Death by Megadeth here on Coin Metal. And that was Cold Chamber with Sway. I got this thing really quick, and Bryce Wiener had posted this. I thought it was pretty hilarious, but you know, in reflection, it wasn't so funny, really. I mean, considering the potential that some people actually lost money on this one. But I wanted to do a minor reflection on this just because of what we talked about before the music break of the OFLC or whatever the fuck they are. Did you listen to the requirements of that thing? Now consider the application of the Lightning Network. You're supposed to be reporting to these people, the OFAC, if you've done a transaction with somebody that's on their list, that's blacklisted on their list. Now, there's all kinds of boasting about the Lightning Network being like all onion routed and all that business. So now that means that everybody that bumps your transaction along, if you're one of these people that's on this list, is now like an accomplice to facilitating a transaction for you. Now, I seriously doubt everybody that wants to be a node on this Lightning Network business is actually going to be reporting to the OFAC. I really doubt it. Anyway, continuing on. This is on Trust Nodes. Lightning Network DDoS sends 20% of the nodes down. And who? It doesn't tell us who wrote this, but it was written on March 21st, 2018 at 12:17 p.m. Lightning Network LN nodes faced a distributed denial of service attack yesterday that sent offline around 200 nodes, down from 1,050 to 870. Quote, Lightning nodes are getting DDoS'd. Rumor is that someone from the 2X effort known as BitPico has taken credit for this. The Lightning services I deployed have been attacked from the start, with botnets, etc. Deploying in adversarial conditions, decentralization is hard, Alex Bosworth, an LN Apps developer, says. It's unclear who BitPico is. A Twitter account with that name says they are bullish on Bitcoin and are working on LN. Further tweets suggest they are hostile to Bitcoin Cash. There are reports, however, they wanted to minority chain split fork Bitcoin to Segwit 2X despite it being cancelled off late last year. let's see, Lightning Network, BitPico. So LN nodes write data to disk in case of crash, as to not lose funds. That's what the PR says. Anyway, Golang uses libc. It is not compiled into pure ASM. Nevertheless, we are not focusing on Golang, LN in general, and TCP/IP stacks. This is rad, I guess, trying to, or bar, I can't tell. BitPico, write an exploit and get back with us. Until then, it sounds like concern trolling. BitPico, funny. We are exhausting LN TCP/IP stacks as we type this. It's no good if we can overtake the TCP stack and run it out of FDs. We have hundreds of connections to LN nodes, and it's automated using our hand-built attack toolkit. When we increase this to thousands, then what? A Lightning Network node runner going by the handle of Tsbit says his node experienced increased activity that sent his node offline. Quote, I noticed it on my node. I think it stopped my LND once. Either way, my node's load just spiked a little high a couple of times, and part of my problem was leaving my screen on the terminal with LND logs spitting to std out and debug level, which greatly intensified the effects on my node. Once I stopped displaying logs to no one, my node started humming along again, DOS or not. You can pretty clearly see when I got hit and when I switched my screen to something else that didn't make so many TTY updates. The exploit is basically using many node connections, as many node connections as possible, so as to prevent any new connections, with potential solutions being to limit the number of connections per IP. That kind of defeats the purpose of LNs, doesn't it? The public networks, however, cannot easily resist DDoS attacks, with the best defense often being as many nodes as possible. Currently, LN has a fairly limited number because although the network has launched on the main net, it is mainly usable only by developers. A graphical user interface such as a wallet is still lacking, with the network having few channels at this stage, suggesting it has only a small number of users. But the attack does show that the Lightning Network is still a very new protocol, and relatively simple aspects such as limiting connections have not yet been refined. Bugs and exploits therefore should be expected, as is the case with any just launched new open source protocol, especially where money is involved. With time alone thus showing just how secure it is, because undoubtedly there will be many hackers peering over every little aspect of it for some time, or for some of that bounty. Yeah, and this has been kind of predicted. You know, a lot of people have said, myself included, that Lightning, as it's described, would be very, 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 very difficult to do with public nodes. Now, private nodes, you know, having a private network, a lot easier, but therein you create the central point of failure. And we're back where we started with trusting people again. One of these days we'll figure it out. We haven't figured it out yet, but I envision what's going to end up happening is we're going to end up with another one of these bumps in Bitcoin use caused by the banks printing and printing and printing. The transaction volume is going to go way up, the price is going to go way up, and the transaction fees are going to go way up. And so they're going to be stuck with a real choice now. Either A, hand transaction processing over to a third party and start a monopoly point, or B, increase the motherfucking block size. I'm hoping for B, as I'm sure many are, but that remains to be seen. And it is with that I would like to close out this episode. Certainly do appreciate the listenership and the support. Anyway, we will be back again on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I'd like y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. Watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Thank you again for listening. You can find me on Twitter, and I am going to do a last dance, but it'll have to be a quickie. And so I'm looking for the exact right one for it, and I think I just figured it out. System of a Down. Bounce. Now I just got to scroll down to it. There we go. Bounce, 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 bounce. There it is. Anyway, thank you again for listening, and you all have an excellent evening.